I guess it's my turn. Spike. What was Spike to me? Well, I got Spike from the Humane Society of Quincy, Illinois. I adopted him at 6 months old. When I got him, he was kind of abandoned by his family. And he just was really, really eager and hyper to start over and and it was just me. I didn't have anybody else at that time. And so when I went over to the Humane Society, I went back twice. And I pretty much asked him. Him and I talked. I took him for a walk a couple times, and I made a deal with him, made a promise with him. I was like, you watch my back, I'll watch yours. And I brought him home, and he just loved people. Never got mad at anybody. Never once growled or got upset. The only time he'd ever growls when he was playful growling is when he told me it's time for a bath. And he didn't mind a bath outside. He just didn't want a bath in the bathtub. I mean, he would sit there and growl like, you could still pick him up, put him in the bathtub, and then he loves it once he was in. Then he'd shake everywhere, run around like he's the happiest dog in the world after his bath. But honestly, there was only one time I ever seen him get mad, and there was these two dogs in my neighborhood that he didn't know, and I didn't know. And Gracie was young, and Spike's hair on his back went up, and these two dogs started coming after Gracie, and Spike literally got away from me, got down in front of her, and made it very clear. It was the only time I can say I was ever actually scared of him. And he was not mad at me. He wasn't mad at Gracie. He just looked at these two dogs and made it very clear, you don't mess with Gracie. And I knew from day one he would always have Gracie's back. And when Gracie's mommy was pregnant, she'd come over all the time, and Spikey was there. And Spikey got along with everybody really well, and he loved people, and he went for walks all the time. And I went through a really hard time, and Spikey was the only person that was there for me. Nobody knew what was going on, and it's a different part of my life that I've written down many times, but Spike was literally the only other, was there with me the entire time. And there was times I was curled up and I could not, and Spike made sure I wouldn't be like that, because things got too really rough in my life. And Spike made sure that I didn't keep my head down, and I kept pushing forward. And I basically moved out of my one house and got rid of it, or didn't get rid of it, put it up. And then I moved in with my dad, and it was kind of a good thing because it's just dad there. And so Spike would hang out with my dad when I wasn't around, and then when I was around, I'd take him out, take him for walks. I handled everything with Spike. Nobody else did. And him and my dad had a really good bond. And it's funny because he loved when the UPS guy or FedEx person or mailman would come to the door. He'd bark, but he wasn't barking to scare him away. He was barking to let us know they're there and that he wanted to play. And so he knew every time Gracie was coming over, and he'd get depressed if she didn't come over. I took him with me everywhere I went. We used to be in the truck all the time. I had a Ford Ranger extended cab, and he used to ride on the front seat, and that was his spot. And he loved taking rides in the Jeep with the top and the doors off, and he loved going down to the river. And I took him with me out of town a bunch of times. But he slept right next to me in my bed. I know everybody says well, you know what? When you're single, other than Gracie sleeping next to me, I always change the sheets. I always got clean sheets and everything on, but I had several blankets down so that his hair and stuff wouldn't get down. But he would sleep right next to me, and he'd literally cuddle up right next to me, just like a pack animal. And that's where he slept. And when he wasn't feeling good and stuff, he'd sleep on the floor. You can always tell if he wasn't feeling good or if he's upset about something, because it was how he would react. He wanted to be part of our group. He wanted to be part of everybody, and we let him. My sister at the beginning was kind of nervous with my 3 nephews, but then she realized that Spike was a gentle giant, meaning he literally you could do whatever you wanted if you were a kid to Spike, and he would not get mad at you at all. Literally, not even once. I mean, they'd pull his ears, pull around, you just walk away or something, go to a different room, or go in his, he had areas that nobody was allowed, that he was allowed. Like downstairs in his room and everything else. I didn't let the boys go down there, just in case Spike needed to get away, because, let's face it, kids sometimes can be, the thing about it is, Spike always kept up with him. He was at every birthday party, he was at every slumber party, he was at every event and activity we did. Every Christmas, him and Gracie, from the time we used to walk him up and down the street when she was learning to ride her scooter and her bike and everything else. We'd walk the neighborhoods, we'd walk the river, we'd go on nature walks, we'd go to the playgrounds, and Spike was always with us. Even though it said no pets allowed, Spike was right there. He was for an emotional support without even being part of the emotional support. So, there's lots and lots of memories with Spikey. I mean, you think about it, from 2005, February 1st, to February 1st to 2018, we have story after story, because every day he was with us. Every day he was in the Jeep. I think he got a little depressed when I got a new Jeep and I sold the truck. Sometimes I think that's the reason why he started letting go. He saw the truck was no longer there and the other Jeep was no longer there, and his home life started changing a little bit. Gracie's starting to get older, but he's always going to be loved. All the neighborhood kids loved him, even the ones that were scared. He didn't run at them. He let them approach them finally. And every single neighborhood kid loved him to death because he was non-threatening. He was outside all the time with them, even though he's an inside dog. I mean, we went sled riding with him, we went walking with the rain with him, and he was just a really good support. He was part of family. He wasn't owned. He was part of our family. He was part of who we are and what we love most. I mean, any of us were upset, he was just right there. And whenever Gracie home, he always slept. Okay, would put him up on the bed with her. But he always slept in her room when she was there to protect her. And anybody like I said, he was always well aware of what was going on. He never touched anybody's shoes or anything. He never destroyed anything. He had a thing, if you had to actually give it to him. And I think I taught that to him earlier on. He was never abused or anything else, but I'd actually put something in his mouth, and that meant it was his. And then Gracie learned that if she put something in his mouth, he was not, but all her stuffed animals, all of her toys, he always left it alone. Unless somebody put it in his mouth, then he thought it was his. And I told everybody, don't put anything in his mouth. And now he didn't bite it. Literally, you had to put it in his mouth to get him to eat it, or to chew on it, so he knew it was his. And that became his. He loved taking tops off bottles for some reason. It was really funny. He'd take water bottles, even though, when the water's empty, and he'd take the tops off of them, and he could get any kind of bottle open that you wanted. The squirrels outside, he loved to chase the squirrels outside. He could hear, we had a brand new air conditioner put in, brand new, and he kept going over by it. Couldn't figure out why he kept going over by our brand new air conditioner. Well, all of a sudden the air conditioner quit working. Couldn't figure out why. We tried everything. Called the guy back. It turned out he knew there was mice in there, and he was over there making sure they didn't get in the house. And he literally was telling us, and we thought he was just going senile or something, but it turned out he could hear those little noises. He could also see things that none of us could. He knew when there was moles and voles out in the yard, and we finally got rid of them. He liked to play around in the garden, which is where I end up burying him at, so that when the shade of the tree hits the garden, it'll cover him, so he'll stay, the shade will cover him up, but he can also help things grow in the garden now. And that's about as far as I got with that part. As far as Gracie, he's loved everybody, and I think that was the greatest part about Spikey. What made him different is he just loved everybody. And everybody loved Spikey. They might not like me, but they did love him. So, that's my story. We'll do more later.